was working on this lady who had fourth stage cancer, and I called her up on the table and I did an ESP session, and it was like she and her body were drinking it in, and I touched her. It was so sweet because it was probably the first time in her life she'd ever been touched with true kindness and an acknowledgement of her being. And I was just like, oh God, you're such a beautiful being. And she got up and it was just like the softness in her world. It truly showed everything and anything is possible and changeable. It truly did. Calling it a miracle is diminishing it. So let's talk about miracles for a moment and what is called a miracle here. There was one lady at the 7-day, and she was great at about day 2 or 3. Day 4, she started getting really angry, and she was like standing there like this, or day 4 or 5, whatever, standing there to ask a question, and I didn't get to her question, and she was so angry. And so somebody came up and wanted to comment on somebody else's question, and she was like, no, you can't have the microphone. So they walked over to somebody else and grabbed the microphone and made the comment. And then another person, like 3 different people this happened with, and this lady was so pissed that I wasn't taking her question. And it's really awesome because it wasn't time, it didn't match the energy of where the class was going. And that's the only reason I hadn't called on her yet. And so she gets the microphone and she's like, this class sucks, and the session I had with you was the worst, and the ESC we did was the worst, and I hate it, and it's terrible. And I was like, well, okay, cool. Why don't you take your money and go home? And she wouldn't leave. And I was like, okay. But I was like, look, if something's going to change here, you're going to have to choose it. I'm like, I'm already happy. You can do whatever you want. It's not taken away from my happiness. And so you realize that whatever is going on here, you can change and I'll facilitate you, but you need to actually ask me a question. And so she did. And then she started telling me about this dream that she had. And we unlocked this thing that she had had with her forever. I think literally forever, quite frankly, since time began, as far as I could tell. And when it unlocked, oh, goodness. There are not words. But I just did my best to not only convey that energy to you, but put a little niggle in your world so that what unlocked for her can actually have much more ease unlocking if you have any part of what she had going on. And truly, you should have seen this lady, perceived her whole world change in 20 seconds. Totally different person. She went from, she was angry, she was pissed, she was holding onto the microphone, to smiling, laughing. She hadn't laughed the whole time. Smiling, laughing. I went up, I couldn't, it was one of these things that changed so much, so quickly, so beautifully, so brilliantly. What I've always, I've seen this in certain times before, and it always brings me to tears. It was this. It was you calling it a miracle is diminishing it. Seriously, calling it a miracle is a diminishment of it. It is, there are no words. But hopefully you get just even a bit of a sense of the energy. And I was trying to talk after, and trying to continue on with class. And I'm like, sorry guys, I just need some space out in nature right now because this is so fucking beautiful. I just want to go breathe this in and just enjoy it. And so we stopped class, and the last time I had a sense of that was I was working on this lady who had fourth stage cancer in Milan, and we were at an ESP there, and I called her up on the table and I did an ESP session and have this ESP energy going, and it was like she and her body were drinking it in, and I touched her with, it was so sweet because it was probably the first time in her life she'd ever been touched with true kindness and an acknowledgement of her being. And I was just like, oh God, you're such a beautiful being. And it's so funny because she's one of these little like tough Italian women, it's like, and she got up and it was just like the softness in her world. And same thing, I just had to cry. I couldn't talk anymore. I went across the street and communed with the trees and you know, in this big old trees in this park, and it was a similar thing. What's possible? It's like it's time to change our perspective. We have been living from this for fucking ever. It's time to start embracing this and to not let this even end. Let it keep going and going and going and going and going. If I had a bigger camera angle, I could show you really big. So I'm talking about this. Oh, and by the way, the lady with cancer, and I never claimed to heal it, by the way. That was not my target. Everybody else was like, oh, you should try to heal that. I'm like, that's not what I do. It's not my job. Anybody's going to heal, it's up to them. But a couple weeks later, she had gone in for her tests, and they said that all of her markers were down by 50%. Said she lived more in that 6 months than she had in the 67 years before that. It truly showed everything and anything is possible and changeable. It truly did. And I literally, after I was, if you ever had so much energy in your body, you just, like, I had to walk around and pace and was just expanding and just tapping into the trees and the flowers and the earth. And it was just amazing. And I said, I'm like, if this is possible, anything is possible. I'm like, if this can change, then anything is changeable. Let's get our butts on finding not the how, but let's get our butts into gear and finding the awareness that these things are possible, and then also find out how. And not how from a linear point of view, but how from, like, what can we ask for? What can we experience? What can we choose? This reality, a reality of consciousness. This reality, a reality of consciousness. Okay, so when this, let's say the thing with the lady who was so angry changes, looking from this reality's perspective, you'd go, oh my God, it's a miracle. Why? Because it's something you cannot explain with currently explainable terminology or technology or awareness. But from a reality of consciousness, the person whose consciousness and awareness is out here looks at that and goes, yeah, it's a miracle, and I would freely call it that. And it's actually undoing the unconsciousness and anti-consciousness that was stuck in place that the person couldn't or wouldn't let go of. So what do we have? We have this awareness that beyond this reality is where the miracles live. And for somebody functioning from this level of awareness and consciousness, and I hate to call it levels, but I guess you understand what I mean. This is just what is. This is just an application of consciousness applied to this situation, and the person was willing to receive it. That's what miracles are. Another thing I'd like to have you have in your awareness is that access works on two levels dynamically. Okay, but it's all about accessing consciousness. But if you're stuck in this reality and you got money shit and you judge yourself a lot and you don't feel really happy and you wonder why these people who come to access are like, why do they seem so happy and they act like everything is easy and all that, and all of life comes to them with ease and joy and glory and all that, blah 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 blah. Well, access works to change all that shit. Okay, so it works to change your money stuff and your relationship stuff and your problem stuff and your unhappy stuff and your depression stuff and all the stuff. Okay, works to change that. And if you're somebody who knows that there's a far greater world available, it works to invite that into your world too. It doesn't just work on one level or the other. And they're in fact tied together, because if the more of this you undo, it's kind of like, so if you're stuck, let's say you're totally stuck in this reality, let's say you start to undo your stuff about, I don't know, money. There's this little, maybe big bloop of more consciousness that occurs here. Now you'll still have all kinds of parts of this reality, but there's this bloop of consciousness. And then when you start to change that, you realize, oh my God, I can't actually change this shit. I thought it was unchangeable because I've been living in this reality for so long. Fuck that shit. I'm going to fucking change my fucking shit. And so this changes, and now you realize other changes are possible. So you start exploring consciousness in those areas, and then you get more consciousness here and here. A miracle is something that somebody at this level of consciousness sees as a miracle because they can't explain it. But when you have this level of consciousness, you're like, oh yeah, of course. We just undid the unconsciousness and anti-consciousness.